Good morning and welcome to Cuyahoga County's Community Development Committee. It is Monday, November 18th, 2024, and we're in the C. Ellen Connolly Council Chambers. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Ms. Stevens.
Present.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you.
And let the record reflect that council members Conwell and Miller are also in attendance.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay. We have minutes from the October 28th meeting of the Community Development Committee. Are there any comments, corrections, changes, thoughts from my colleagues? Hearing none, could I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
A second? A motion for approval and second. Any comments? Hearing no comments, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, these minutes are approved. Okay, Madam Clerk, there are two items that have been referred to committee because of the substantive nature of 0376. I would like to move it to second on the agenda and ask you to read 0395 and bring those folks forward.
Resolution 2024-0395, awarding a total sum not to exceed $100,000 to the St. Clair Superior Development Corporation for the 50/50 matching grant home repair program from the District 7 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Good morning, Madam Director. If you would identify yourself for the record and your role with the agency.
Good morning. I am Terry Hamilton Brown, the Executive Director of the St. Clair Superior Development Corporation.
Thank you. This morning, we'd love for you to talk to us about how you will use these ARPA funds if awarded to your agency.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Councilwoman Conwell. Thank you and to all the members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about currently our 50/50 matching home grant program and our request for $100,000 to assist residents in the St. Clair Superior area whom we are unable to serve with our current program. First, I'd like to describe St. Clair Superior service area. It's on the northeast side of Cleveland. We go as far east as the Cultural Gardens, Martin Luther King Drive, as far west as 30th Street, and principally between Superior and St. Clair, or even as far north to the lake. And our strategic goals are engaging our residents, creating a sense of place, enhancing our neighborhood's assets, and having a legacy of service and performance for our community. I joined St. Clair Superior earlier this year in April as the new executive director, and I found existing a program called the 50/50 Matching Grant Home Repair Program. And the program was to serve resident, more than that, homeowner-occupied property. Someone needed to be current on their taxes and be able to match the grant with at least 50% of the total project cost. And we are seeing grants go anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. $10,000 is our maximum right now. And this program is privately funded with philanthropic monies. What we found, at least I did, as we broadened our application process is that we received over, oh, I have this PowerPoint. Are you moving it for me? Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm just talking. Thank you so much. We received like immediately 33 applications as I went back out and put it on the website and flyered the neighborhood. But about 18 applicants were unable to participate because they did not have funds to contribute. And so we moved forward with the grant as it was awarded as a matching grant program, and currently have 8 projects underway. We actually completed 2 last week, but in conversations with Councilwoman Conwell, we talked about the people we're unable to serve. And this is, 18 who made applications, but many more who either didn't because they didn't have the money or didn't know of the resource. And so we are asking for $100,000 to serve homeowners in the St. Clair Superior neighborhood who are without funds to contribute to needed repairs like a roof or a half of a roof or fixing a porch or fixing another one that we've gotten. We also work with a program through Western Reserve thank you, called Nails It, where you can help seniors get safety items for their bathrooms. But oftentimes we find the floorboards are really deteriorated from water. So that's another kind of repair that people really need to be safe in their homes. And so with monies from the county, we would be able to address those issues. And maybe people can take care of some emergency kind of, urgent repairs while they're saving up money to do other things, or just, being able to keep their home and to keep it in safe conditions. So a summary is that we are here, St. Clair Superior Development Corporation, to serve our residents, and we find our residents have varying needs, and so we are looking for resources to be able to serve everyone that we can.
Madam Director, if you would give us an example of one of the repairs that was completed or is about to be completed by this program?
Sure, there are pictures on the last page of the deck, but we just helped someone fix their driveway. We have done roofs. We have fixed the floorboards in bathrooms that are getting new toilets and grab bars, or there's another household, a senior aging in place, and the Nails It program will take out a tub and put a barrier-free shower, but you may need to do plumbing and other things to make the bathroom able to accommodate the new shower. And so our grant can help with everything but the shower enclosure. Front porch.
Why isn't the shower enclosure eligible?
No, the shower enclosure is eligible with Nails It.
Okay.
That, the toilet, the grab bars, but if you have to move the plumbing,
Oh, okay.
then
So that's why you
extra-
need the matching funds.
That's right. And so for somebody who doesn't have the matching funds, we can pair this award of ARPA with the Nails It funds for the enclosure and help someone have a bathroom that is, really safer for them, and they can continue to age in place in their home.
Questions from my colleagues? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any question. I just like to, well, I guess so. Through the chair to Ms. Brown, do you also let the residents know about the Heritage Home Program? that's another way to leverage the funds, because there's one thing to have the need, but then there's another thing when you are a senior and you try to get a contractor. And sorry, but some of these contractors out here really take people for a loop. So I always tell them about the Heritage Home Program, because they do have a general contractor come in and they give you the 3 estimates so you can deal with somebody legitimately. So a lot of our seniors across the county have tried to repair. You know, they try to do their thing, and then they get a shyster that comes in, takes their money. They still have the problem, and their money's gone. So
The answer is yes, but I'm not sure that we tell every single person about Heritage. In fact, I've worked with that program twice. And so it is a wonderful benefit to owners to have, that kind of technical assistance. So, in fact, I'm joined this morning by Natalie Cantor. She is our AmeriCorps Vista, and she's working on housing. And we were just talking about putting together a fact sheet and sending it out, now about various assistance, whether it's for emergency repairs or refinancing or the kind of, planned home repairs, or just if your furnace goes out. It's that time of year. And so, yes, we are planning to put together a fact sheet that will have a range of resources on it, and I will make sure that the Heritage Home Program is part of it. It's definitely a very good program.
And one other final question. How are the residents selected for this program?
By application and first come, first serve. And we document the applications and the dates when we've received them.
Other questions or comments? Well, I think this is a pretty good program to match with several other things that you're doing. The agency's to be commended for looking for these types of ways to provide additional services to our seniors. I'm glad you thought of doing this with St. Clair Superior Councilwoman. Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move this forward to the full council under second reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other conversation? Hearing no other conversation, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition. Ms. Hamilton Brown, this has to have 3 readings before County Council. Staff will inform you of the scheduled process. It'll probably be sometime in the new year before you have the full use of these funds. But with the support of this committee, rarely has there been any problem with the legislation moving through council. Thank you so much for your commitment to Greater Cleveland.
And thank you for approval through this committee and for your time. I appreciate it.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. On that motion, I think we have to have a sitting committee member make that motion.
Oh,
So moved.
we just change it then.
And
Now
then a
we'll need a
second.
different second.
We'll need a second then.
Here we go. Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Kelly and Mr. Kelly made the motion, and Mr. Gallagher seconded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, Resolution 2024-0376, authorizing a contract with CHN Housing Partners in the amount not to exceed $5 million for housing, counseling, and program administration services of the Cuyahoga Property Tax Assistance Program to prevent tax foreclosure and displacement of homeowners facing financial hardship through provisions of direct taxpayer assistance, effective upon contract signature of all parties for a period of 2 years.
I believe we have a presentation updating us on some activity and conversations that have had by the treasurer. Mr. Treasurer, if you would identify yourself for the record, please.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Brad Cromas, County Treasurer. And I believe we're pulling that up now, right? Madam Chair, members of council, appreciate the opportunity to come before you again and share some additional information and updates regarding our proposed taxpayer assistance program. This is a proposal that we brought to you several weeks ago with the aim of providing assistance to folks who are in the direst of straits with respect to tax delinquency, to respond to what we know is a growing need in our community for assistance in this space. So just as a refresher, the program proposes a, am I able to use this to advance, Sharon?
I can do that if you'd like.
Okay, because thank you. So the program proposes up to $10,000 in one-time assistance for folks who are over the age of 70, who have $70,000 a year or less in income, and who are also property tax delinquent. So we have had substantive conversations with various members of the committee, including the chair, President Jones, and others, about how we might improve the program. The feedback I received from you all were essentially concerns with respect to distribution and making sure that there was equitable access across the county to funding, looking at how we advertise the program, who we were reaching out to, and how, and those sorts of things. So all of that we have had some conversation on, and if you can go to the next slide, Sharon. We've got some new pieces here that I wanted to share with you all. From the top of that, you'll see another concern that we had heard from you all was, how are we making sure that these are seniors who've been in their homes? Or how do we make sure that they stay in their homes, that they're not just going to take the money and then flip the home? So those first pieces we added prior to the last meeting regarding a residency duration requirement, having had to have been in the home for 3 years prior to receiving assistance, a longevity requirement, staying in the home for 3 years after. So those remain in the proposal as it is presented today. And then the new pieces today are the part that are highlighted in red there. So proportional distribution in year one is one of the things that we believe may assuage some of the concerns that you all raised. We partnered with our friends in GIS. Tom Fisher and his team put together a dashboard for us that I'll be sharing just shortly to kind of demonstrate, where are our delinquencies, where are our homestead folks, and what does that look like across the county. So we have a plan for ensuring access across the county that's proportional. In the first year of the program, there will be access to funding in every county district. A certain portion will be earmarked for usage in that district in the first year of the program. The second year is we're proposing to be utilization based. So we will know after a year where were the funds actually used and kind of redistribute after that year. So if they were underutilized in one segment or there was a higher demand in another, that kind of helps us address the need based on usage. So that's our proposal, year one, year two of the pilot program. Another piece that was mentioned in our last conversation was the tension between first come, first serve and trying to get the money out the door as quickly as possible and in service in our communities, and also the desire to preserve some access for people who may not have the information right away. So we're proposing the creation of a hardest hit reserve to preserve access for late arrivals. That would be distributed on a lottery basis. And we will discuss shortly kind of the source and substance of that funding. The other thing that we're mentioning or proposing to be different this time versus our prior conversation is how we're marketing the program. There was some concern that we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Certainly something we completely understand and are aligned with. So our proposal is to target our outreach to our most likely participants rather than doing a shotgun approach and putting something in the tax bill that we mail to all of our taxpayers, to instead do direct outreach to the cadre of folks we think are most likely to be able to use this. And that's going to be based on the dashboard I'll show you in a moment as well. And then lastly here, enforcement discretion, safeguarding some, putting some safeguards in place to make sure that our office has the capacity where there may be discrete issues, someone who has a long-term illness or is in a long-term care facility but still owns the home, that we're not immediately going to foreclosure in those cases. That's something we're preserving as the treasurer's office within our agreement to be able to enforce, to have some discretion over the enforcement provisions. So those are kind of the broad highlights. And if we can go to the next slide, this is the budget piece, and in having conversations about how we arrive at that hardest hit reserve, we circled back with our partners at CHN to this and to the pieces that they put in place with respect to what they were planning to do with the overage in their $500,000 administration portion. So that, just as a refresher, again, 2-year pilot program, $2 million in each year for direct assistance, so that $10,000 per taxpayer ceiling. That's the $2 million pool. And then there's an additional $500,000 pool for the provision of housing counseling services, which we feel like is the critical element here. CHN believes they can serve all of the residents that they're able to under that $500,000 figure, and then there's an overage in both of the both of those years that they project having in available assistance. So you see in year one, there's a direct assistance difference there of about $92,000. And in year two, there's a direct assistance difference of, I believe that's 78. My prescription is not as strong as it should be, probably glasses-wise. But that's the reserve that we are proposing that we use and distribute by lottery. So there will be some portion that we're reserving and some capacity to serve. And we think that that's probably the best methodology for arriving at that piece. Next slide, Sharon. So this is the dashboard I was referring to. And I'm going to probably need some IT assistance because I made the mistake of letting my computer go to sleep. But what this is again, GIS put together a piece for us that, yeah, thanks, Ricky, appreciate that. That put together a piece for us that distributes on a map of the county and by district where our tax delinquencies are for our folks who are on the homestead exemption. So those two caveats are primarily what we're showing here. If you slice and dice the data for those two factors, you arrive at 4,022 parcels across Cuyahoga County that are both on a homestead exemption and property tax delinquent, and a total, thank you, sir, property tax delinquency of that group of about $26 million. The other piece that we were asked to show is a durational piece to sort of be able to demonstrate who are the people that we're serving really. Are these recent arrivals to the county? Are they instead folks that have been here for quite a long time? And so we asked the GIS folks to provide us with that parameter as well. So I want to drive through this quickly with you all, and this is available on the web. Everyone should have an access to this after the meeting. We're going to make sure with staff that all of you get a chance to see this. But again, you see our top line highlights here in the bottom left. Next to that, then, you'll see kind of what the dots are showing, and this is our delinquent properties by balance. The green is $100 to $5,000. That is the vast majority of the folks that are tax delinquent, and our plan is to send a letter to all of the folks that are in this category. So part of the goal with this program, yes, is to provide that direct assistance, but also to make sure that we're touching all of the people who might be in this category, who we can assist in some other way. And in this case, that might be just a payoff if it's simply a small special assessment that's delinquent. It may be a small contract or a brief catch-up contract. So we're working with our partners at CHN to triage those conversations. Some may be a fit for the program, some may not, but that's kind of what we're showing there. And again, if looking at these figures, of the 4,022. Around 3,100, I think 3,200 have a delinquency of $10,000 or less. So that's the vast majority of the folks that are there. The other piece I would show, or just kind of highlight now, is this top section. So we have by council district, and I'm just clicking through these right now to show you what. Yes, ma'am. I will do that. Thank you very much. So just to kind of show what that looks like district by district. So starting with Council District 1, Councilman Kelly, you can see here, the vast majority of your folks are in that, $100 to $5,000 category. And then we break down along the lines there. You've got 91 properties that are in this category. There's one max balance that's way out of whack. Your mean is about 7,000, and then the total delinquent balance there. So that's that first piece. The other parts that I think are worth showing are these pieces down here. So you see we've got a drop-down menu. The durational stats I'd mentioned before are here, and we had our GIS team break them out into 4 categories: high balance, long duration, so greater than $5,000, longer than 5 years, I believe was the figure we used for that. 15 years, I'm sorry. Longer than 15 years, low balance, long duration is less than 5,000, more than 15 years. High balance, short duration, more than 5,000, less than 15. Low balance, short duration, less than 5, less than 15. So you kind of see the breakout there, which we think is useful as well. And then another thing we're providing to all of you are the maps portion here. So this shows us graphically where the delinquent properties are distributed within each district. You can see that mapped out here. We are showing all of our colored dots that correspond with the delinquency amounts. So we've got that piece. Let me see if I can go back here. And then also, this is the durational map. So again, kind of mapping out within those categories how long folks have been delinquent, what that looks like. So just to kind of give you a flavor of that, I don't know I'm not sure necessarily we have time to go through that for every district that's present, but you all are getting this after the meeting to kind of dig into. But absolutely, yeah, sure. So Mr. Gallagher, you are District 5. So let me pop this back onto the stats menu. And again, the nice thing about this, it's dynamic. You kind of have a chance to see what this looks like comparatively. But here again, just as an example of Mr. Gallagher, District 5, 122 properties delinquent or that are in these two categories with a max balance of 56. Your mean is 5,700, and then a total balance of 697, which again is pretty similar to what we saw in Councilman Kelly's district. Durational stats, again, most of the folks are in this low balance, short duration category. Those people are probably not participants in this program. So as I kind of want to highlight, I think the sweet spot for this program we're proposing are people who are in the longer term categories. Low balance, long duration, high balance, long duration. The vast majority are probably going to be in this category that's red here that I'm hovering over. The low balance, longer duration. My sense is that's going to be where we think folks are going to find the most value. Of the whole distribution, about 40% fall into those two buckets. So, I think that there are other tools on the shorter end that we can help folks with. But that's just to give you flavor. And again, for the sake of showing maps, Councilman Gallagher, this is the distribution in your district of where folks are both on homestead and tax delinquent. So you can kind of see that visualized there. And then again, the durational map is here. So, again, you've got a higher concentration of those red parcels kind of over here on the border of the city of Cleveland. There are some that are further out, but again, just for the sake of kind of demonstrating what that looks like, we've put this together, and I think that's very useful. The last thing I want to highlight here before we go back to the general presentation is this piece, which is the property distribution by district. So as I mentioned, our plan is in year one to have a distribution that is based on demonstrated need as demonstrated by these parameters that we put in place. Our proposal is to round these to the nearest whole number. So, you kind of see what that looks like. Every district is guaranteed at least 2% of the pool in the first year with a maximum of 18%. We think that squares the concern with distributing and making sure that there's access everywhere, but that we're also, paying attention to where the greatest need is kind of holistically as well. So unless you want me to show you more on the dashboard itself or any questions about this piece, I'm ready to return to the PowerPoint, but I want to pause there and see if there's anything I can answer based on what I've shown you thus
My
far.
colleagues? Okay. Yeah, you have a question?
Yeah, on the map, through the chair to the treasurer. Okay, so District 7 has 18.4%. How will that be determined, who you help out of that 18? I know you're going to go to the lowest need or the lowest duration, but is it an application how are you going to select the individuals that will receive this?
Thank you. Through the chair to the councilwoman. It's a good question. So we are still utilizing in that first year a first come, first serve kind of distribution for the initial tranche, right? So once that initial tranche is exhausted, then we're into that hardest hit lottery pool. And again, we're trying to square a couple of competing concerns. There's the equity and the access concern, but then there's also a desire to make sure that we're getting the funding out the door, because the population we're trying to help is already tax delinquent, and maybe subject to foreclosure at any point. They're certified delinquent, so they're subject to foreclosure. We want to get people before they're, seeing additional costs accrue from that sort of thing. So that's the way we are proposing we get at that.
So you will, I know you mentioned earlier target, so your department will target those individuals that fall in that for the first allocation. You're going to send them a letter?
Yeah,
and they'll be
we're
able-
sending letters to these 4,022 folks. And, then as we get responses back, our partners at CHN will be triaging those responses, again, to see what suite of services may make sense. If it's a low balance, low delinquency, you missed a sewer bill or something, that's either you just pay it, or we can get you on a payment plan to make up that difference. If it's something that's more substantive, then that's where, the one-time assistance, the housing counseling, some of these more structured and substantive interventions would come into play.
Can I ask if you could, I don't know if it's impossible, but coordinate with DSAS when you start to get 70 and above? In some cases, there's dementia or,
Right.
they're getting scammed and all kind of things. They might not focus on that tax bill, and just cross-check how many of these participants would actually be getting assistance from our Department of Senior and Adult Services. You'll be amazed that there's probably quite a few where there's actual caseworkers going into the homes that might help them identify that this is a service.
Through the chair of the council, I'm certainly amenable to doing that. Actually, the proposal that we put together here came from DSAS's survey of seniors, right? So that makes a lot of sense. And I have been in contact with Director Petricola about, this program and what we do. So I think that makes sense, certainly.
So where are we going next? Because I'd like for you to focus a little bit on the Cleveland Housing Network piece and how this will help us meet our goals.
Certainly. So if we can go back to the slideshow, Sharon, I think that takes care of that. And the next slide here is, again, just a presentation of that pie chart I showed you a moment ago, so we can skip past that. The CHN portion of the program, I'm sorry, so one more slide on there. This is, again, just the distribution of durational kind of information, which we discussed a minute ago. So you've got that there for your reference as well. But the CHN portion, this is mostly a refresher, and we had them present it this time. They send their regrets. Unfortunately, they had it's flu season. We had some illness. We had some other things that came up. But this speaks to the application process. We're using the online portal for that still. We have, as you may recall, stood up a just interest form at this point. We've already received about 500 responses on the interest form, which are distributed in a way that somewhat reflects the GIS map. It's not a perfect one-for-one because they didn't break it out by district, but there is a distribution across the county, many communities, and I'm happy to share that with you as well.
So let's slow
yeah.
our roll a little bit here. So CHN received this large number of folks. Was it just through paper or exclusively online?
Exclusively online. And their administration of the program, because of their facilities and their setup, needs to be exclusively online. So this is where we're going to be relying on partners to help people make those connections, potentially DSAS, others, because I am sensitive to the fact that the population we're serving may not necessarily be the most online savvy or have access necessarily to the internet. So that's a piece we'll be working on with our partners to make sure that we find a way to get them through the
And when you
process.
say it's been diverse, does that mean it's been the 500? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, around 500. This is actually not.
They were
the
from
updated one.
all 11 districts in some ways?
We're
or-
certainly all 11 districts. Yeah, I mean, the vast majority are, yeah, they're from all over the place. I could run through the list for you if you really like, but
So, you don't have a slide for us on
I
that?
didn't put a slide together on that because,
So
you know,
do you have it by, how's it broken down? By district?
municipality.
By municipality?
Yeah, they didn't have it by
So
district.
what municipality had the largest number of submissions?
Probably unsurprisingly, the city of Cleveland had 100.
Okay.
So that was the highest.
And the lowest?
Second largest is East Cleveland. The lowest on here that I see, we do have one in Bentleyville, one in Mayfield Heights, one in Chagrin Falls, one in Brooklyn, one in Walton Hills. So, I mean, they are distributed across all communities. Yeah.
What was the number for East Cleveland? East
Cleveland was 4.
Okay.
And I think that may be a product of information. Speaking to the point that we discussed before, that's part of why there's value in the distribution by percentage, because that may lag, but we're still reserving a piece in East Cleveland, knowing that there's a higher demand there, or the district that includes East Cleveland.
I would be familiar with
Yeah,
that district.
yes, you would.
Okay. Okay. Do I see some budding questions? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Treasurer, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, just to wrap up the CHN part, applications come through the portal. They're going to be asking folks for information about their parcel, their contact information, demographics, and then they're going to be contacting applicants to make sure that completion happens. If you want to skip to the next slide, that's where, when they determine that someone is a fit for this program, that is the triage piece, right? So either you're a fit for this program or you're not. If you're not, they're going to refer out to other services, other options. If you are a fit for this program, they'll be assigned a HUD-certified housing counselor. They'll review what the goal is for housing, talk about that person's finances and whether it's sustainable. If there are any, kind of emergent hardships or issues that have led to their instability that are either transient or not. So they'll have all those conversations, and then they'll work with the applicant to develop a spending plan that puts them on the path to long-term sustainable financial success. They have 30, 60, and 90-day check-ins as are required by HUD housing counseling. And then they're creating an action plan for other services that may make sense for them, whether that's the homestead that they may not have or other funding streams that may be available. Sharon, next slide, please. So once that's done, they submit a funding request to bring the bill current. We are advancing them the funds, so we'll approve that, and then they'll send the check in for the amount of the tax overage. And at that point, we'll sign them up for Easy Pay and a delinquent tax. Easy Pay is our monthly prepayment program, as well as a delinquent tax contract, if that's applicable in their case. And again, they're having check-ins after the fact. So that's that slide. And if we can skip to the next, this is what the portal looks like presently. If and when the program is approved, this is our page, Treasurer's Office page. That link will change over to a different form on CHN's website that would be the live version of the application. And if you click to the next slide, Sharon, this is what that application page looks like currently. It's got some information roughly on the parameters. If you're interested, contact us. Obviously, we will update this with the new pieces that we're proposing today. But that's how that process would go. So I believe that's my last slide. So I'm sorry, there are a couple of new things just to put a finial on that. Councilwoman Kelly had suggested that we provide regular updates to the council committee on that. I'm happy to do that. We think quarterly is the right metric point for that. We've got a number of pieces that we intend to be reviewing, and we'll be happy to share those. Those metrics have been identified already kind of in our conversations, but those will be the things we'll be sharing with you on a quarterly basis. So that, I believe, is the last slide. So again, without any questions we have, please let me know. Yes, ma'am.
So I think that substantively you have covered the issues that presented us with concerns. Thank you for following up so quickly. Questions or comments from my colleagues? Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair, to the Treasurer. So if this is a successful program, is there any chance you can bring some of this in-house to try to save some of that money to have it more available to the people that need it?
Through the chair to the councilman, that is a good question. I think that's something we'd revisit down the line. At this point, because it's a pilot program, that's not infrastructure we're really comfortable building internally, but it's certainly something that we're willing to have a conversation on. And there are other projects we're pursuing that might present some synthesis with that without getting too specific because it's still kind of nascent. But, we are looking at how we can promote financial empowerment kind of across the life cycle, and that may eventually be something we do in-house. But we kind of need to show our work first.
Got it. Thank you. That's my only question. Thank you.
Miller, did you have a question?
I did, and I also have just one, and it's about year 2 of the program where it's utilization-based. And am I understanding it correctly that if a particular area is underutilized in the first year, would that trigger an effort to provide more to that particular area? So it's trying to correct for deviances. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, I think that's roughly right. So part of the thought process is, we want to make sure everybody gets a bite at the apple. If there is an area where, and I think this is highly unlikely to happen, but if there's an area where funds are underutilized for some reason, we know there's need elsewhere. We want to be able to address that need. So it would shift an allocation commensurate with usage in the first year. Reading the tea leaves a little based on our responses, I don't know that it's going to be a substantively different allocation, but we did want to preserve the opportunity to do that if the data showed us something else.
So, Madam Chair, Director, so I kind of think I heard the opposite of what I said, which is that if an area is underutilized, that you would say, well, this means that they're not making good use of the program, and you take some of their money and shift it elsewhere. Is that what I heard?
Through the chair to the councilman, I think that's the theory of the case. And part of that is because we're doing direct outreach to the folks we think are most likely to utilize the program. We're kind of leaning on our own ability to do that outreach effectively. And all of that is to say, again, my sense of it is we're probably not going to be doing a whole lot of substantive redistribution. But again, for the sake of letting us follow the data, we want to have that capacity to be able to share elsewhere if we have to.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Gallagher, did you have a question? Ms. Simon, followed by Council President.
Okay, thank you. I first want to say thank you to the treasurer and the chair for working out a distribution throughout the whole county with an allocation of a percentage based on the data. So thank you for doing that. Question about sending out the missive to residents who might be interested before county council even, I think, looked at this formally. You have responses from people. How are you going to utilize that information that came in, I believe, prematurely? But go ahead.
Through the chair to councilwoman, that information, it's more or less a, hey, I'm interested, let me know when this is live kind of thing, right? So it's an inquiry form. And once we have a fully approved program that's ready to roll, CHN is going to reach back out to those folks and say, this is the program. You're encouraged to complete the application and to apply. So that's...
But what was the point of that?
One, to gauge interest, and two, to get a pipeline going so that we can get the funding in the field as quickly as possible.
So if this is first come, first serve, which it looks like that's how this is going to happen. Unfortunately, people who, somehow found out about this program to when you did a floating of interest are going to have an advantage over other residents. And I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned that the first launch of this was in Councilman Kelly's district, in District 1. All of those folks are going to have a heads up. If it's first come, first serve, they're going to take advantage of that. And I think there is an inequity here because of all of this. I believe, I don't know what the point was doing all that, because now you've skewed the first come, first serve basis for those who happen to be fortunate enough to be in attendance at that meeting, number one, and number two, had somehow the information to respond to this inquiry. So how do you respond to that?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I think that we've preserved some ways to respond to that. So, again, we do have district by district distribution. So there is some allocation that responds to what the data tell us about where the need is. So every district gets at least some portion of the allocation. The other thing is we did preserve a hardest hit fund, which I'd mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, where that portion of CHN's budget that isn't dedicated to housing counseling services will be preserved for, you know, a latecomers kind of pool that'll be distributed on a lottery basis. So there is some provision to allow for some of that. You know, certainly there are competing kind of desires here in the program, but we feel like that squares that fairly well.
Okay, well, the only reason you have in every district allocation is because I sat here at the last meeting and asked you to look at that, because when you presented to us, there was nothing like that even under consideration. In fact, you know, I thought there was some resistance, but because of the chair, you know, pursued this with you, now we do have that program. But this was half-baked when it came out. How did you choose District 1 to do this launch? Because that totally disadvantages the rest of the districts. I understand that it's going to be proportionately, let me just say this, it's going to disadvantage those who didn't have an opportunity to be at that meeting if it's first come, first serve. And how did you choose District 1?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, respectfully, I am happy that we were able to come up with a district-by-district allocation. That's something that was always kind of, we knew that this was subject to council approval. This is part of the process of making public policy, right? So I think it's stronger for our conversations, and I appreciate the feedback that we got on that. As to how we chose District 1, we knew we had to have an event at some place, some point to have that conversation. You know, that's where we were. I don't
Well,
know
who
that
made
there
that
was any-
decision? And then what was it based?
It was based on a request, I believe, from a council person in that district, but that's about all I can share with you. That's not, I don't know much beyond that, so I'm not able
Who
to
made
answer
that
your question
decision?
further. I am not, I mean, we as a team in the fiscal office made that decision, again, based on
Okay, so you were
a
part of the
request.
decision-making
Yeah.
process. Who's on the team that made that decision?
Who's on the team in the fiscal office, Councilwoman? I mean, starting with the fiscal officer, right, I think that's part of that team, myself, and then the executive office. So those are, you know, that's the decision-making tree there. And I'm sure
Okay,
that
so
Mr.
you were
Chambers
part of
would
the
be happy to
decision-making process.
answer that question further. if
You were in the
interested
room when they
taking-
decided on District 1. How did you make that decision?
Again, I believe we received a request from a council person in District 1
You mean a
and,
city council person?
Or
Because
county council district?
yes, a city council person.
Who's that?
North Olmsted is where we were, correct? I don't,
Okay, so North Olmsted council person requested a meeting in their district
I believe that's all
to
I'm
start this process. Okay.
able to share on that, yeah.
can
Okay,
we
that's it
stay
for-
with this topic for a minute, if you will excuse me, Mr. President? Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It wasn't me, Councilwoman Simon. I didn't even know about it till the last minute. And
Respectfully, we have, through the chair to the councilman, we had several substantive conversations about this program many months ago. In terms of that particular event, we shared it with you as soon as we had details available for it.
okay, I'll disagree with that, but okay.
Okay.
If I could just ask one question as far as District 1 being pointed out here. Have you received, the people that have contacted you so far, have there been more District 1 people that have contacted you than anywhere else in the county?
Through the chair to the councilman, no, not more than anywhere else in the county.
Okay, so it didn't make a huge difference at that point. Okay, thank you.
Just as a follow-up to that, thank you. Sorry, Madam Chair. So were those in the room, however, provided the opportunity to go online and express their interest, those who attended the District 1 meeting?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I believe the point of that meeting was to share with the public generally that we were having the program. So we had press from all over the county present, and information was shared with all members of the press, as well as those in attendance, about how to get on the interest form. So
Was
yes, that
everybody
was
in the
offered.
audience who qualified responded to the
I
inquiry?
don't know that I can answer that substantively because I don't know who was in the audience or not. I know that I'm sure some of them took advantage of that, but I can't speak to individual.
So when the councilman asked about, and I'm not going to continue on with this for much longer, but I'm just curious, when you say that North Olmsted or District 1 doesn't have more inquiries than the rest of the county, because you already indicated the city of Cleveland was the top responder, is that true?
That's correct, yes.
Who's second?
Parma? North Olmsted's on the list, so North Olmsted's right there with Parma, but, I mean, so to your point, they are a little elevated, but again,
Okay.
the point of that event was to make sure that we were sharing information with the entire county and to make the press aware, so that we could get the word out and start gathering information and gathering interest.
Yeah, my concern is just that council had not even weighed in. And when you put something online that says contingent on council's approval, really sets us up in the event that this was a program we might have thought wasn't baked yet or
Through the chair to the
suitable,
councilwoman.
the council then would have to get all the inquiries from the disgruntled residents who thought they were going to get money. So, I don't think it probably was not thought out to that level, but it makes us out to be the bad guys if there's a turn of events that we don't approve it.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilwoman, I respectfully disagree with that characterization. As I mentioned before, we had many conversations with many members of council prior to the launch of this program. We made an attempt to talk with everyone. I can only speak to what our efforts were to do that. And this is something we think will be very substantive in helping a good number of folks.
With all due respect, you keep saying that. I didn't ask you about talking to council people because you really didn't do a good job outreaching to any of us. You sent an email maybe that we didn't respond to perhaps. But when you have a program of this magnitude, maybe now you know that it's not a good idea to just send us an email and then launch a program to the press and not have any substantive conversations with us when you put it out there to the public that this is all going to be contingent on county council is the point. That perhaps, you understood at that time that if something went awry, that council would be blamed for a
I think we all would
half-baked idea.
own that failure if that were to happen respectfully.
You
But
would
I disagree with your
okay.
characterization, but your point is taken.
What is it that you don't agree with, how I characterize this?
The implication that we didn't do substantive outreach. I fundamentally disagree with your characterization, but I understand
Well,
your
she's
perspective.
not alone. The majority of council members feel that you failed to communicate with us well. We are part of the same team, and we need you to talk to us regular.
Okay.
Occasionally, just like you, we're human, and we miss an email. And so there are times when you have to reach back more than once. And I think I
okay.
represent my colleagues well with that statement. Correct, Mr. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we're part-time as well. So I think there's a misunderstanding, even though we work hard and we're here almost every single day and all of us work more than a part-time job here, but in reality, we are part-timers. So just for future teamwork, it'd probably be a good idea to follow up with our staff.
Okay. I disagree with the characterization, but I understand your perspective. And we are all on the same team and all working to make sure that we do the best we can for our
Madam Chair,
constituents.
I'm going to let this go, but when you keep saying that, I would like because you keep harping on you disagree with this characterization, I would like to know in writing what exactly you did to talk to us on a substantive level about a program of this magnitude that was going to impact all our districts and go to the media first and put us on as the default.
Again, we didn't go to the
I
media
want to
first,
see in
Councilwoman.
writing what you've done because you keep coming back to that instead of
Certainly.
just saying, hey, I probably could have done better. Thank you so much, Council.
I don't disagree
No,
with that.
it seems
we can
like
always
there's-
do better.
Well,
That's always true.
Well, that's not the tone of this conversation, so I would like everything in writing that you've done, that you keep defending, that you've been able to provide to us. Madam Chair, if you could follow up with that, and I'll have staff do it as well.
Be happy to provide that, Councilwoman. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Director Crumbs, I do have to just to echo everything my colleagues have said. I don't remember necessarily getting anything, and maybe I missed an email, but the contact wasn't sufficient, and maybe there was an email, and I didn't see it. You were very clear on your interaction, as you remember, with Councilman Kelly, but we still aren't. But you were not as equally clear with who the executive branch was that helps you in the decision-making process. So, those type of things are helpful. If we want to have clear communication, those things are necessary. I will say this, I'm thankful for the meeting that the chair and myself, we had with you. Councilwoman Sunny Simon did push to have those dollars spread, so I'm thankful for that conversation that we all had about making sure these things are spread in a more equitable way. I'll also ask, in our conversations, we talked about the full universe. And maybe not everyone needed money. Maybe someone needs a third payment plan when we're used to just doing two. There should be not just financial literacy, but an assessment of everyone. And that is equitable when you can touch on everyone, an assessment, and determine what they might need. If we're going to use money as a tool, why not use the whole toolkit? If money is the biggest tool, I see no reason why you couldn't extend to a third payment plan or all the other tools that you have in your toolkit to provide to everyone an opportunity. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Councilman. And through the chair of the councilman, that's an opportunity for me to share with you the work that this kind of sits within all of the work that we're doing on delinquent tax outreach in general, right? So we've built a team through Mr. Chambers in the fiscal office that does a lot of work in that space to reach out to taxpayers directly. We've redrafted our delinquent tax policy to make payment plans more available, including a third payment plan opportunity for all residential properties. So we've extended the window during which we're offering delinquent tax contracts. So we've been at pains in the past many months to make as many options available for taxpayers who find themselves behind as possible to catch up. It's something we're going to continue doing. It's really something that I'm very passionate about. So, if any of you have ideas about how we do that more effectively, certainly I'm amenable to having those conversations further. But I appreciate that sentiment because I'm right there with you.
Will you be reaching out through direct mail, whether in the actual tax envelope or in a separate piece to make to again market what we're doing here, what you're doing here?
Yeah, it'll be direct mail, separate piece, again, for the sake of kind of keeping our universe narrow so that we're not reaching out to people who may not necessarily be eligible.
Ms. Conwell, you had another statement?
Yes, through the chair. How much, to the treasurer, how much DTAX funds do we get annually?
I believe that number, Mr. Chambers, has left
You
me.
stepped
It's
out of the room. You
$3.5
left
or
you by
$4 million.
yourself, dude.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. I was looking for reassurance. I believe it's $3.5 or $4 million annually that we receive in DTAC funding.
Okay, and how much of that do we give to County Land Bank?
That's a separate pool. I'm sorry. So the 3.5 or 4 is the county treasurer, 2.5%. The county land bank, I believe, is around 7.
Because it adds
it's a
up to
little less than
approximately
that.
2.5.
2.5%, right, is our allocation. The prosecutor gets 2.5, and the county land bank gets 5.
And then,
So the county land banks is around $7 million.
as a follow-up to Councilwoman Conwell's question, have we been squirreling away or saving the county's piece of that? So you have $7 or $8 million in reserves, so that pulling the 5 out of it doesn't leave us with nothing there.
That's correct. Yeah, we have a balance at this point of about $11 million in our DTAC fund. We've been very kind of judicious about utilizing that. We feel like this is a good tool for us. And we're looking, as I'd mentioned kind of before, about other ways we can do financial empowerment work utilizing that tool. So
that if
when
one of-
we get to that place, we'll be having further conversations about that, but we're not quite there yet.
So if we had an urgent need that kind of exceeds what we saw as the percentage in one district, we could continue to be helpful. You might have to come back to this body for authority, but there is a way to solve some problems we didn't envision.
Yes, potentially. That pool is limited statutorily in terms of what it can be used for, right? So it's got to be delinquent tax collection related. But certainly that option is there and something we'd look at if we needed to.
Okay. Other questions or comments by my colleagues?
So I just want to make sure, Chair, that, so say they help a good percentage of one of our districts to get back on their footing. Will they be privy to the counseling at that point, put on homestead, put on payment programs so they can help themselves stay out of that situation for a minute? How would that be determined?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, if I understand the question, you're asking about what happens to folks who don't get into the
No, they get in it.
Okay.
They get in it, they get cleared away the 10,000 or less. Is anywhere in the program, is there a way that you're assuring that they don't?
We want to stop
Right,
recidivism.
absolutely. And that's the purpose of the housing counseling piece, right? So we want to make sure that they're taking advantage of all reductions that they're eligible for, whether that's the homestead reduction, the owner occupancy, whatever those pieces are. So we're planning to connect them with as many of those things as possible. And then again, part of that conversation they have with CHN is what is your ability to pay? What does your income look like? What's a financial plan that makes sense for you look like? So it gives us a chance to kind of sit down with them and have that more in-depth intervention to say, okay, something was broken here that got you into this place. Was it just budgeting? Was it an income problem? What is it that resulted in that? So we feel really strongly that actually, and again, this is why it's a pilot program. We're going to look over 2 years and monitor that to see if it's the case. But we think that the housing counseling piece will make a real substantive difference in keeping people out of delinquency, which ultimately is the goal.
So, Madam Chair, I just want to ask, I was going to ask about the reporting too, so I think quarterly is good, but I think we should have some further discussion of what that criteria is in that quarterly
We are working
reporting.
on that with them. I think we gave 3 suggestions last week.
Yeah, I've got it. I was trying to pull it up a moment ago and couldn't find it, but I can send that back to you as a follow-up.
Okay, who was served, how was it marketed to, and how will you access the ones that didn't respond to it? Those would be mine if they weren't added the first time.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion on the floor?
I make a motion to move this to the full council for 3 readings.
Chair Stevens, if I may make a request without intervening, but we did initially want to do second reading suspension if that's an option. Again, for the sake of making sure that the funding is available before the tax bills hit and not having this crossover into 2025 if we can. So I wanted to make sure I made that request before we got all the way through.
Let me see if my colleague is
Yeah,
willing
thank you.
to amend his statement. Mr. President, are you willing to amend your statement?
I will take the consideration of council. There were many concerns about this program.
So my concerns have been satisfied to the extent they can be. Yes, I think it's a good idea to try to help taxpayers, and I would second a motion from the president to move this out of the committee with a recommendation for second reading suspension.
Mr. Kelly, did you have a comment? All right.
Okay with second reading?
We're okay with second reading. So, hearing first, the motion was made and amended by Council President, seconded by Councilwoman Simons. Hearing no further comment, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Unanimously passes, and will move quickly before council.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, for the record, I'd like the record to reflect that Mr. Jones and Ms. Simon are now in attendance.
Thank you. Okay, comprehensive conversation there. Did I forget anything, Madam Clerk?
No, there are no other matters for consideration.
All right, thank you.